What's going on, everybody? Welcome in Fantasy Alarm TV. I'm your host, Howard Bender. Welcome to Table That Discussion, where we here at Fantasy Alarm get together, discuss all the hot button topics, both fantasy and reality sports. The trick is here, we make it a little competition here amongst the guys, and well, I award out little points, fire alarms, however you want to call them, throughout the discussions here, and those who end up leading and get to be on fire, well, they get to lead the next discussion from there. Look at this, my original panel here from the very first episode of Table That Discussion. I got James Grande, Edward Rouse, John Impemba, Matt Sells. Boys, how we doing today?
Doing well.
Good.
How
Ready
about
to
a little
go.
enthusiasm here, guys?
Ready to go.
How we doing today, guys?
I'm pretty good. I got to watch some Psycho Max Scherzer on the mound with a black eye, a brown eye, and a blue eye. So,
Which brown eye, the winker or the stinker?
no, he has two different colored eyes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Somebody explain that to Matt Sells
I
after the
know.
show.
I was
Yep.
keeping it family.
In the meantime, let's get down and dirty here with Table That Discussion. Topic number one, gentlemen, let's waste no time. Should we allow fan voting for the All-Star Game? MLB All-Star Games coming up in just a couple of weeks here. And, well, we had fan voting. Then there was ballot box stuffing nightmares. And suddenly the entire Kansas City Royals starting lineup was actually on the All-Star team here. Well, somehow we've gone back to some fan voting here, and my curiosity is getting the better of me. Is this a good idea? Is this not a good idea? And, well, since Matt Sells seems to be the most agitated and aloof right now, let's start with him. Sells, fan voting for the All-Star Game, yay or nay?
I am definitely not in favor of it. As you mentioned, we saw a few years ago the entire Kansas City Royals starting offense was the American League All-Star team, including Alcides Escobar, who I'm not even sure was hitting his weight at that point. This year, the Braves are doing it now, because now you've got Josh Donaldson is rising in the voting. Ozzy Albies somehow is leading second base voting, even though he got dropped to 8th in the order because he couldn't hit. I'm sorry, I thought you had to hit to make the All-Star team. It's just, you can't allow fans who are fanatics and root for their specific team and expect them to fairly elect people that should be there from other teams. It just doesn't happen. It's happened like this in every single sport. It's just got to stop. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just got to stop.
John and Pemba, let me ask you here. The All-Star Game, it doesn't mean anything for the standings. It doesn't mean anything overall about fantasy either. You've got a home run derby, an All-Star Game. Managers are playing around with just using one pitcher per inning. This is all made for the fans. Why shouldn't the fans be the ones who choose?
No, I mean, I actually agree with you, Howard. This doesn't matter. If you're getting worked up about who's being in the All-Star Game, that's really, I think, in my opinion, on you. I don't watch the All-Star Game. I understand that it's the only thing going on, and they try to make it this attraction, but even the home run derby's too long anymore. Before they used to go out and you watch Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and all these guys hit these moon shots, and they had to change it up, and some guys are in the home run derby that aren't even in the All-Star Game. Like, they're just trying to make it new and improved, and the whole thing is getting the fans involved. If that's what the MLB wants to do, that's up to them. Let all the fans go out there and vote, and if you don't like it, then get your fan base around them. Why didn't Boston or New York go ahead and outvote Kansas City that year? Make a campaign. Every team and every fan base, you call them fanatics, should be fanatical about voting for their players. So if one fan base is stronger than the other to represent, that's what happens. Let them do it.
Well, is one fan base stronger than the next there, James Grande? Let me ask you here. You've got big media markets like New York, L.A., and then in Chicago. Now you turn around here and you look at Kansas City. They're the ones who end up leading. Is there some sort of illegality thing that we should be worried about here? Keep it fun for the fans, but let's limit them in some way. Can we?
I mean, I think we can, but I don't think the big market teams care. I mean, what do they care about, Howard, in every sport? They care about winning championships ultimately. So fans, as a Yankees fan and John as a Red Sox fan, I don't care about the All-Star Game. I want to win a championship at the end of the year. So whoever wants to vote on it, vote. Like, sure, if you want to give it to the fans, I don't care. The mid-major or the mid-market teams like the Royals, who have won in the last however many years, probably care more about the All-Star game because they know at the end of the year when they're 60 and 102, they can look back and say, yeah, man, Whit Merrifield started in the All-Star game. But, it doesn't matter to me either. I don't care if the fans vote. I don't care if the GMs I ultimately think it's just whoever, just keep it as it is. It is a fans game, but it ultimately doesn't matter.
It is a fans game. Ultimately, it doesn't matter stats wise. But Edward, let me ask you. Your Padres hosted the All-Star game. A couple of seasons ago here. If it's for the fans, why is it so cost prohibitive to actually go to the All-Star game? Ticket prices are insane. Concession prices are insane. If you want to take part in any of the All-Star activities over there, you got to pay extras. Nothing's free here. There is no free lunch in MLB. Should we just get rid of All-Star games altogether if they don't mean anything and fans don't even get a chance to or have limited opportunities to go?
I don't think you should get rid of it per se. I think they should just change the name of it. All-Star game? It's really not an All-Star game. If fans are voting, they should call it a celebratory game or something. Still have fun with it. The thing that I hate about the fan voting is it tarnishes the future. For example, once anybody retires in any sport, the first thing they say is, baseball, for example, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, 4-time All-Star. It's always in the list of their accomplishments. Now we got to look at that and say, well, if he was voted by the fans, like Ozzie Albies is going to be a 2-time All-Star. Is that really as important? That's what I don't like about it the most, is it kind of ruins the long-term aspect of it.
Does it ruin the long term? You got to build up a resume somehow. You got to make your case for the Hall of Fame here. To me, listen, if you want to list me as an all-star, list me as an all-star. Howard Bender, 4-time participant in the Fantasy Sports Trade Association draft. I don't know. Listen, it pads the resume there. But it sounds to me like all four of you're perfectly fine either A, just, making the game the joke that it is, or B, let the fans just do what they want. It doesn't really matter anyway. Thumbs up for an All-Star game, thumbs down for getting rid of it.
I'll still go thumbs up for the All-Star game there.
Celebratory game.
Yeah.
You can't call it an All-Star game if it doesn't have the stars in it.
Well, the stars are still going to be there, so it's just not your
Except for the fact that Anthony Rendon, who's been arguably the second best third baseman in the National League in the last 5 years, doesn't have a single appearance in the All-Star game. He's 5th in the voting right now. Why? Because fans have no idea what they're talking about. So if you're gonna count the All-Star game
the fans
as
don't
a
vote
resume
the entire
builder, like
roster.
Ed said, then you can't let fans vote.
The fans don't vote the whole roster. They vote the starters. Why aren't the coaches naming Anthony Rendon to the team
Except
afterwards?
this year.
Well, here's
This year.
here's the interesting fact with that, guys, is that you talk to players, and for the most part, they don't know what the rest of the league is doing.
Right.
Like, in all honesty, you could talk to anybody in the Kansas City lineup, and if you ask them what they think of, I don't know, take the Pittsburgh Pirates, for example, they're going to be like, I don't know what that team's doing there. So who does the voting? Coaches and players aren't paying attention to teams that aren't really that relevant to them in the grand scheme of things here. It's a fan-based thing. Why are we so against it here, in the sense that ballot box stuffing is really the biggest problem here? Are we in agreement that ballot box stuffing is the biggest issue?
No, the biggest issue is I agree with Ed that you can't count it as a resume builder if it's not accurately voted on.
What do you mean it's not accurately voted on? You're putting it in the fans' hands? You're saying you guys vote?
Right now, would you say that Ozzie Albies is a better player than Anthony Rendon?
In the fans' eyes, he is.
Right, but the problem is when they retire, likely won't be the case, yet Ozzie Albies will be a 2-time All-Star right now, and Rendon won't have any, except he will be a better player, but he'll get knocked for it when it goes to the echelon of players. Like Ed said, how many times do you hear this guy was an X-time All-Star, X-time Gold Glover, X-time whatever? So
Matt Sells, two-time table that discussion winner here. I don't know, really. I mean, where are we going to go with that? I'll tell you what, though. Here you go. And let me throw this out there for you guys. If the fans don't know anything and the coaches and the players aren't paying attention, well, why don't we somehow get the fantasy community involved? If there's a fan base out there who knows, how do we get MLB and fantasy baseball players together and to determine who deserves actually to be at the All-Star game? Sells?
I'd be fine with fantasy players voting. If you have a fantasy baseball team, you get the vote.
Impemba?
Are we going fantasy baseball players voting, or if we go come time for the All-Star game, whoever's the top 3 at the position are the ones that are getting voted in here?
I'll tell you what. How about this? How about Edward? You tell me. If you won your fantasy baseball league last year and you can prove it, well, then you get a vote for the All-Star game. Listen, maybe there's 5,000 people voting. Maybe there's 10,000 people voting. Maybe there's 1 million people voting. But that's the criteria. You had to have won your fantasy baseball league the year before. Is that fair enough?
Now you're getting the biggest sports fan teams out there with less amount of people. It's going to be even more ballot box stuffing. I have an all-star vote, a limited amount. I'm a Padres fan. Manny Machado and Tatis all day.
Oh, so Grande, there's just no solution here, is there? We should just, eliminate it all. Or say who cares and just let it happen.
I think it's just the ultimately say, who cares? Just let it keep on.
It's an exhibition.
Keep on moving. Just keep on moving.
Game.
It's a game that doesn't matter at the end of the day, and it's going to continue to be that game that doesn't matter.
All right. Well, there you go. Let's finally table this discussion here because I think the 5 of us can all agree it doesn't matter. Not one bit. Next topic to talk about here. Let's move over to fantasy football, guys. Everybody's doing best ball drafts right now. Rankings are up. The Fantasy Alarm draft guide has started and the content's rolling out. We've seen the rankings. We've read the pieces that are out there. Want to know from you guys, who is this year's late round value quarterback? Last year, Patrick Mahomes, drafted in the 15th, 16th, 17th round of most drafts. Almost 5,100 yards, 50 touchdown passes. Now, I'm not saying somebody's going to duplicate that, but James Grande, tell me who your late round value QB is.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to duplicate that. I mean, I'm not anything's out of, the realm of possibility, but I'm going to go with Derek Carr. I've kind of liked what the Raiders have put around him, at least offensively. Like, I think their defense is going to be atrocious still. But I think that only bodes well for Carr because the more points the other team score, the more they're going to abandon the run and just try to chuck the ball down the field. I mean, Carr, let's just talk about the weapons. Everyone knows Antonio Brown was added to the team. They drafted Josh Jacobs, who, caught a decent amount of passes at Alabama last year in a split backfield. So I don't think, he's a pretty good pass catcher out of the backfield. We have Tyrell Williams, who was 11th in yards per catch last year, and J.J. Nelson, another weapon that they added. So there's a lot of weapons around him. He's coming off a career best in yards, coming off a career best in completion percentage. So I just think there's a lot of things going right for Derek Carr. Obviously, he needs to repeat last year's numbers, but there's a better team, or at least offensively, there's better weapons around him. So I'm going Derek Carr to be a sneaky fantasy quarterback this year.
All right, Derek Carr for Grande. Before we continue with everybody else's choices, which hopefully aren't as bad as Grande's, let me just remind you guys. So the last round there, by the way, Matt Sells, you're the only one who got a fire alarm there. A lot of piss and vinegar for you. There was a lot of anger there. Oh, don't throw your hands up there, John and Pemba. Listen, you were there. You said exactly what everybody else said. It sucks. It's stupid. What are you going to do? Although you did side with the fan vote there for a minute. So you know what? I'm going to do that just out of the goodness of my heart. So who doesn't say the squeaky wheel doesn't get that grease? So John and Pemba, you get one. Matt Sells, you've got one. Grande, Edward, neither one of you scored in that last round. Moving right along here, James Grande's all over the Derek Carr train. Let's go to Edward here. And who you got, Edward?
First, let me say, half that last round, Sells was agreeing with my point that I made before he talked.
Okay, well, you just went to a -1 there for being argumentative. Please continue.
Okay.
What would
I had
you like
get
to
that
say?
out of the way. I'm going with the man that everyone's kind of forgot about. And speaking of Matt, Matthew Stafford. Right now he's
-2.
around the 21st quarterback overall taken right now, according to the average draft position out there. That is crazy to me. I know he had a down year last year, and it just came out recently that he actually played most of the year with a broken back. So that could have a lot to do with it. But he finally has a running back, I think, which is very important for him. A stud running back who could maybe even catch up to 60 passes next year. He had 32 in 10 games in Kerryon Johnson. Kenny Golladay is emerging, could have a career year. Getting TJ Hawkinson in the draft and signing Jesse James and Jermaine Curse both can play great roles, especially in the red zone there with Jesse James. Plus 6 years before last year, 4,200 yards or more for Matthew Stafford. I say I'll take him in 21st quarterback overall all day.
All right, John and Pemba, look at you. What do you got? Who's the backup for Tom Brady, guys? Do you know?
Jared Stidham.
Jonathan.
Soon. I'm going to go, actually, with the former New England Patriots back quarterback, current 49ers starting quarterback there, and Jimmy Garoppolo. I know he's coming back from that torn ACL. There's still some questions, how he's going to progress through training camp and if he'll be ready for week 1. But I just look at the offense that they have around him, and we saw some of those guys kind of flourish last year with guys like C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins throwing them the football. We all assume that Jimmy Garoppolo is a better quarterback than those guys. He gets Kyle Shanahan's offense, which, again, cut short last year, but we saw what Shanahan did for Matt Ryan, get him that MVP-type season. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo for me as my late-round quarterback this year.
Sticking with your Patriots roots. True Boston right there. Unbelievable. Matt Sells, talk to me here. Please, for the love of God, give me somebody who I'm going to be interested in drafting.
My pick would be Kirk Cousins. He's the 17th quarterback off the board right now. He's going in like the 12th round. That's pretty late for a guy who has 4 straight 4,100-plus yard seasons. He's averaged 4,368 yards passing, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions the last 4 years, with a better than 65% completion percentage in that time. If he jumps his TD percentage up to 6%, which is like about 0.5% off of what he has been, that equals a 35 touchdown season over the course of 16 games, which, by the way, he's played all 16 games for the last 4 straight years. He has Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph, and a healthy Dalvin Cook behind him. We already know what they can do together. It's not a guessing game like the other guys mentioned have been. We already know what Kirk Cousins can do in that offense. The defenses in the NFC North, not really much to write home about right now, except for the Bears. The Bears are a pretty tough defense. But, I'm going with a guy that's already done it for 4 straight years and gets overlooked and is going 17th among quarterbacks.
Grande, give me one reason why I should not even remotely listen to Sells about Kirk Cousins.
I mean, you talk about 4,100 yards. Derek Carr had 4,100 yards last year. And he's in the same,
I want you to cut down Kirk Cousins, so you're going to do that by building up Derek Carr.
I had to build my case somehow.
You cut down his guy by saying, well, my lousy pick did it. Why can't his? All right, I'll tell you what. John and Pemba, say something bad about Matthew Stafford here that I shouldn't be interested in.
I actually like Matthew Stafford as well.
-2 for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of like the pick there. I mean, I was a big, Kenny Golladay guy. I think you and I went back and forth on him a lot last year on Golladay. So, sorry, I don't really have anything bad to say about him.
Wow, look at that. Matt Sells, say something mean about Jimmy Garoppolo.
He's coming back from a torn ACL and he can't stay healthy. And we're not entirely sure what that offense will look like with him there.
Nah, it really wasn't that mean, but okay. All right. What did I miss? Oh, Edward, say something mean about Derek Carr.
That's tough for me because I'm from Fresno. I will say something. His offensive line is atrocious, and he plays for the Raiders. That's all I got.
Well, you know what, though? Listen, the mention of an offensive line finally there. Edward, you get one fire. We're going to table this discussion right now. I see what it is. Edward, you get one. Grande, I don't even know. I'll give you one.
You don't have to.
You're so darn handsome, kid.
I don't want a pity fire, Howard.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to give you one because you didn't even mention Antonio Brown. You just said the weaponry around him is improved. You didn't even say AB's name, so I'm going to give you one for that. Matt Sells, I'm going to give you one because you're just super feisty. And Pemba, well, guess what? You actually get 2 fires here on this one. Not only do you get the Jimmy G risk of the torn ACL, but when I asked you to say something mean about Edwards' poor Matthew Stafford with his broken back and Detroit, you had nothing but nice things to say. So look at that, 2 for you. What's that?
I would like to say that you can come back from a torn ACL these days. It's not the injury that it used to be.
Yeah, Carson Wentz did a great job in the beginning of the season coming back from his.
I'm saying you can. Not everybody's the same. Tom Brady came back from a torn ACL perfectly okay.
All right. Well, now you know what? You just got frozen for the Tom Brady mention right there. That's it. That's boom. Let's let Impemba sit this one out for a few minutes here, huh? Shall we? We're gonna table that discussion. Let's see. Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins. I gotta be honest with you, man. I'm gonna give that extra point here to Matt Sells because I would legitimately draft Kirk Cousins and be okay with him as my quarterback with Stephon Diggs, with Adam Thielen, and potentially a really decent running game there if you got Dalvin Cook and Andrew Madison. Or Alex Madison, my bad. So where are we at right now? Impemba's got 3, Grande's got 1. Edward, are you at 1 or are you breaking even right now?
0.
You're at 0 right now. Well, that's all right.
1 for us.
You're at 3. Did I not say that you were frozen, dude? Seriously. Did I not say? Did I say unfreeze? Did I say let's table that discussion? Move on to the next one? I don't think I did. All right, now I just did. You're unfrozen there. No, it's my pleasure. All right, next topic of discussion here, gentlemen. Let's talk about rookie wide receivers here. We got names like Mecole Hardman, DK Metcalf, Andy Isabella, N'Keal Harry, Paris Campbell. There's a boatload of possibilities here with wide receivers, rookie wideouts. Let's start with Edward here. Edward, who's your top rookie wideout for this season?
I actually like DK Metcalf. I just think he's in the best situation of all the rookie receivers. Russell Wilson's thrown 69 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. You have no really red zone threat there. You have Lockett now as like the best receiver. He's not really a red zone threat, and DK Metcalf kind of falls right into that red zone type of threat. They never had a tight end really be a red zone threat since Graham left. He had 14 TDs in 21 games in college. He's a TD machine. He's a physical specimen. He's huge. He can run a 4.3 40, 6'3", 220 as a linebacker. I just think he just puts right in there with Baldwin retiring, just right into that role and just immediately becomes a must play almost every week.
What if I told you that they were disappointed in how he looked in OTAs, disappointed with his ability to pick up the playbook there, and the fact that they kept reiterating that they're a run-first offense?
Well, actually, Russell Wilson today came out and said he can do anything and everything. He's tremendous, and he already has a great grasp on the game.
That dude's a puppet for Sierra, isn't he? Just a puppet.
Hey, he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. So.
John and Pemba, talk to me here. Rookie wide receiver. Let's see if I can guess who it's going to be.
If we're just looking at ADP rankings right now, N'Keal Harry is the top rookie going off the board, in my opinion. Patriots used a first-round pick on him. They used a first-round pick last year, and Sony Michel featured him in the offense when healthy. They lost Rob Gronkowski. I'll put that in quotation marks because he wasn't a big impact last year, but he's no longer there. Josh Gordon's still suspended. Chris Hogan's gone. They're really down to Julian Edelman, Demaryius Thomas coming off a torn Achilles. They have I'm even forgetting the rest of the Patriots receivers because they're a bunch of nobodies. But we have N'Keal Harry that they use a first-round pick on, in my opinion, to feature in the offense. Brady's already invited him to the compound there that he has at his home in Massachusetts to work out in his backyard with them. So for me, I think they're going to, feature him. And as long as he proves to be as good as he was in college, if we saw him, put up highlight reel plays and worthy of that first-round pick, for me, I think Brady's going to have to rely on the young kid this year, and I'm expecting big things out of him.
If anything, John, at least you're consistent. I appreciate that about you. James Grande, give me your rookie wideout.
I'm going to side with Edward here, go with DK Metcalf. And I I mean, you got to think like Wilson. Edward brought up that he threw 69 touchdowns the last 2 years. He threw 35 last year, and his leading touchdown man was Tyler Lockett, who had 3 touchdowns the 2 years prior to last year's 10 touchdown breakout. Obviously, he had more starts last year, and they were more limited with Baldwin Hurt and stuff. But is that a repeatable type of number, especially like Edward mentioned, where now we have a legitimate red zone threat? We saw the connection between Wilson and David Moore last year. This is a guy who in college averaged 22 yards per catch just last year. So we have deep threat capability. We have someone who we could just lob the ball up to. I think Metcalf is a steal. And I mean, Wilson is a puppet, but Pete Carroll also reiterated similar thoughts to what Wilson said too. I know the playbook stuff is an issue, but Pete Carroll was also adamant on how good DK Metcalf is. So I think it's Metcalf, and I didn't think John would ever say N'Keal Harry ever.
Nobody did. Nobody saw that coming at all. Matthew Sells, talk to me here. Rookie wide receiver that you want to own this year. You think he's going to have an impact?
So I'm going to stay in the NFC West, and I'm going to go with a team that you already mentioned a guy from in Andy Isabella, but I'm not going with Andy Isabella. I'm going with Hakeem Butler. The Cardinals don't have any big wide receivers except for Larry Fitzgerald, who, let's face it, yes, he's a marvel, but he's aging. They're clearly not featuring him the way they have been. They don't really have anybody for that X position. Cliff Kingsbury's system is pass heavy. That's all they do. Trust me, I watched it happen at Texas Tech when I went to K-State. That's all they do. They threw for like 700 yards a game at Texas Tech. The big wide receivers in that system get featured. They get deep routes. They go over the middle. That's what Hakeem Butler is good at doing. Kyler Murray, his best trait right now is throwing the deep ball. So a 6'5" wide receiver that can high point a ball is going to help Kyler Murray when he heaves it downfield. I think that Hakeem Butler is actually the steal of the rookie class right now. He's like the 89th receiver off the board, and I'm going with Hakeem Butler.
Does anybody in this crew think that maybe Matt Sells does a lot more preparation for these shows than everybody else? Come on! Dude's rattling off numbers, talking systems. I'm loving on this here. Two fires for you on that one, Sells. Edward, you got one there because James Grande agreed with you. James, you get none because I gave yours to Edward there. John and Pemba, not only do you get one for predictability, but you also get an extra 2 on there. Why? Because you referred to the Patriots team as a bunch of nobodies. Nobodies that nobody cares about. So right there, you might not have intended it, but we got it from you there. So look at that. All right, last topic of discussion here. Switching over to the NBA, personal favorite of mine. There was a big trade that went down here where the New Orleans Pelicans, I can't even say that with a straight face. The New Orleans Pelicans.
Who play at the Smoothie Center, Howard.
Who play at the Smoothie Center, no doubt. Trade Anthony Davis over to the Los Angeles Lakers, which made my time with Jim Bowden a living nightmare on the air for the last few days here. Well, talk to me here. Jim Bowden says that the Lakers are going to win the championship now. Vegas now makes the Lakers as the number 1 team with the 6-1 odds to win that championship there. I'd like to know here who's the real losers and who's the real winners of this draft. And James, since this was something that you really had a hankering to discuss, I'm going to start with you for this one.
So it's been very, just scrolling through all the social medias and just reading people's thoughts on this. It seems very Pelicans friendly, and a lot of people are saying, oh, the Pelicans this, the Pelicans that. Well, let's just go back to the regular season where this trade was proposed with Kyle Kuzma being a part of the trade. And the Pelicans didn't want it because Brandon Ingram, who was also a centerpiece of the trade, wasn't playing well. But then we get 1 month of Brandon Ingram being good because the Lakers had nobody else. LeBron was being shut down, playing limited minutes. So Brandon Ingram had a good month, and now suddenly everyone's saying, oh, this is such a great trade for the Pelicans because Brandon Ingram's going to butt into the star that everyone thought he would. Now, I don't think he's going to be a bad player. I think he is a solid player. But the fact that the Lakers now have two of, I would say, I think everyone can agree, the 5 best players in the NBA. I mean, when Anthony Davis is healthy, there's no doubt in my mind he is the best big man in the NBA. Plus, it's LeBron James. I don't care what you say about LeBron James. Maybe you put Kawhi Leonard number 1, but right now because he won a championship. But we did the same thing like years ago with Dirk Nowitzki when he won the chip, and then we all know what happens the next 3 years. The Heat go back to the finals 3 years in a row. I love what the Lakers did solely for the fact that not only they got Anthony Davis, but they kept Kyle Kuzma, a guy who scored 19 points and grabbed 5 rebounds. And they're on contract. He's on contract for $2 million next year, $3.5 million a year after that. You're telling me that the Pelicans didn't want that? They have spacing issues now on that team where nobody can shoot. And I've talked to John and Matt a bunch off, through messages that they don't have anyone that can space the floor, especially after they take Zion Williamson, 30% three-point shooter. Brandon Ingram, 30% three-point shooter. Lonzo Ball, lucky to see 30% from the three-point line. Drew Holiday, who in the past, he's like 30, 36, 37. Last 2 years have been under 35. So they have real problems in terms of spacing the floor. They're all guys who like to go to the rim, attack the basket. The Lakers, have these 3 guys and have $24 million of cap space to build out the rest of the roster with shooters, with players that fit their mold. They don't need necessarily the big star because you know what? Kyle Kuzma could be that 3rd big star and he's already on the roster for less than $5 million in the next 2 years. Everything that Jim, I'm sure he said and heard him say about the Lakers winning this trade, I'm all in on the Lakers winning this trade. Yes, obviously long term, maybe the Pelicans do, but who knows if in 3 or 4 years all these guys are still going to be on the Pelicans when they haven't won a championship. So I think the Lakers won this trade, and I'm actually shocked that more people don't think that way as well.
Edward Rouse, are the Lakers the true winners of this deal, or can the Pelicans turn around and say we got the better end of this package?
All I got to say is we heard this from the Lakers fans last year, too, when they just got LeBron James. We're going to win the championship. It's over. We're here now. The Boston rivalry is back on. And what happened? They stunk to bed. Anthony Davis has injury history problems, too. So overlook that. And it's going to be real awakening for him coming from New Orleans, where there's the no crowd or no fan base at all, to one of the biggest, where everyone judges you. I think that's something he has to worry about there. But I actually think the trade kind of goes even for me, only because here's why. The Lakers have been terrible at drafting. So we don't want any draft picks anymore. We're going to give them all to you to take your best player. Perfect. They got it. Then now they're the talk of the preseason like they were last year once again. And, and now the Pelicans have a building block with, they're going to get obviously Zion, and then they're going to build around him and try to build something there. So I think really the winner is the fans, because I think it kind of goes both ways, in my opinion. I don't think anyone really won. It's kind of an even trade. The Lakers got what they want. The Pelicans got what they want. And the Lakers fans got what they want for now until it fails and they get hurt and all that stuff happens. But ultimately, I think it's just even right down the middle.
All right, Matt Sells, the big winners here are apparently the fans. You can't vote, but they can win, at least for that trade there. Do you see it down the middle here? You got one side leaning more towards the other.
I actually have the Pelicans winning this deal. They got rid of their disgruntled big man who was killing team chemistry by just straight up not playing because he was whining his way through. Oh, I'm only getting paid millions of dollars to play with a ball all day. So now he gets to go to L.A. L.A. gave up kind of a ransom. Yeah, they kept Kyle Kuzma, but they gave up, the 4th overall pick in what is a top-heavy draft this year. And you only have AD guaranteed for 1 year. Maybe he doesn't resign because he discovers that the front office in LA is just as, if not more, dysfunctional as the one that's in New Orleans. So you gave up a bunch. You gave up Lonzo Ball, who, yes, his dad is annoying, but that guy can play some point guard. You also have pieces you can trade to fix your spacing problem. We talked in the messages about There's some talk about how the Pelicans are now interested in Bradley Beal because they have pieces they can give up to get Bradley Beal from the Wizards. If they do that, that helps some spacing issues. They got the first pick in the draft, so they get Zion. So now Zion doesn't have to deal with what Anthony Davis dealt with, which is having nobody around him for like 9 years. They also got the number 4 overall pick, which they could turn into R.J. Barrett or Jarrett Culver or DeAndre Hunter or Darius Garland. Those are just a few of the guys I've seen mocked going to them. They could also trade it in a potential Bradley Beal deal. So I think the Pelicans won that deal.
All right. Well, I got one vote for the Lakers, one for the Pelicans, one right down the middle. But hey, the fans came out on top. John and Pema, be the deciding factor here. Who wins this deal, Lakers or Pelicans?
Short term, I'm going to go and agree with James here in the Lakers winning this deal. We can't assume injuries are going to happen. You know, you can say there's a likely chance Anthony Davis get injured, but we can't assume injuries happen. So we're going to go into the season with a healthy Anthony Davis, a healthy LeBron James, and Kyle Kuzma, who's going to continue to develop, we assume. And then as we talked about, they have really nobody else on their roster. They have Mo Wagner, who they drafted last year. Is probably the only other recognizable name on their current roster, and money to spend. And as we've seen in the past with LeBron James teams, veterans will go and take little to no money to go play with him to chase those rings. There's no reason that can't happen again. Plus, there's also talks that the Lakers are going to go out and try to acquire another big name to sort of go with them with the money that they can sort of finagle and finesse to get to that part there. So for me, short term, I'm going to go Lakers. Long term will be interesting because I agree with Salz, and as we've talked about, off this show, had conversations that I think there's another shoe to drop for the Pelicans. I think a trade could certainly be made. There's a lot of rumors floating around that Drew Holiday could be packaged for another player to get over to the Pelicans and help some of those spacing issues that Salz alluded to. So long term will be interesting because LeBron James is getting older and Anthony Davis has the potential to opt out and maybe things go disaster in South and he decides to leave. We've seen it happen before. But for this season, for this upcoming year, the Lakers won that deal. That's how it is.
All right. Well, I think we're all winners on that deal. How about that? I have no opinion on that one whatsoever. So I will just garner the opinions from you guys and say, well, apparently it's the Lakers because my 2 NBA guys just turned around and said that it was the Lakers, although short term from John and Pemba. You know what? I'm just going to table this discussion right now. I'm going to give each of you a little alarm fire right there for that. And by my count here, it's a close one. But congratulations, the first time you've ever won Table That Discussion. John and Pemba, look at you. Let's see, we got nobodies on the Patriots. We've got... yeah. So, all right, John, you get the final word, the final say on today's episode here as the big winner. You're all on fire right now, my friend. Speak your mind. What do you got to say?
Yeah, I'd like to say that this is the beginning of the dynasty here on Table That Discussion. This is number 1. And I believe that there'll be many more to come because in New England, we do nothing but win. So.
Wow. I can't even let that be the final word on this show there. That was just disgusting, dude. That was like a horror show. But I promised you that you got the last word. So there it is. Apparently, people, that's going to do it for Table That Discussion. Congratulations to John and Pemba. Big thanks to everybody else here on the panel. Big thanks to my producer, Matt Wolf, for making all this magic happen here. We'll be back in 2 weeks, actually. Why? Because Daddy's taking a vacation. That's right. You'll catch a bunch of episodes of 3 Point Play, but we'll be back on Table That Discussion in 2 weeks. For John and Pemba, James Grande, Matthew Sells, and Edward Rouse, I'm Howard Bender. Thanks for tuning in to Fantasy Alarm TV, and we'll catch you next time.